Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Memories of Money. I don't usually do intros for the unedited versions of the episodes, but I felt I had to with this one and possibly for a few upcoming episodes as well. This conversation I had was one of the first recordings I did when I started this podcast, and I knew at the time that my interviews needed improvement. But as I was listening back and preparing for this release, I was reminded of how far I've come. The conversation isn't as fluid as my more recent episodes. The feel and flow of it all definitely needed tweaking. However, our guest shared valuable tips and insights, and I couldn't let this sit in the vault. Thank you for bearing with my early inexperience and the rough edges of this interview. And without further ado, enjoy this episode and stay tuned for the next one. Hi, Anthony. Thank you so much for joining me today and agreeing to be on my podcast.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. So, as I ask everyone who joins me, what is your earliest memory of money?
My earliest memory of money, I have to say I was at least 7 or 8 years old. My mom actually had me go to the corner store by myself. This was the early 90s. And, she'll just give me money to go get some groceries, like some milk and some bread, and then walk all the way back home. And during that time frame, I actually saw like a reflective sticker that I actually thought was actually pretty cool because back then those were new, was having like some type of holographic, sticker. So when you turn it left and right, it actually changed colors. And I got home and I gave my mom the groceries and I went up to my room with the sticker. My mom was like, I didn't give you enough for you to buy this sticker. Did you steal this sticker? And I was like, yes. So after she gave me a beating with a stick or from a branch from outside, I actually had to walk back to the store with my mom in tow while she still hit me from time to time, saying, apologize to the clerk and return the sticker. So having that understanding is that money wasn't really looked at as something that we should have all the time, but actually to understand like, hey, people have a business to run, and it's not right to steal.
Okay, that is a very interesting lesson at that age. I love that though. Um, I love that. That's in a very good perspective too, because it's like, yes, you use money to help support other people. Is that pretty much what you got from that?
Yes, in order for businesses to continue to run, um, yeah, we need to spend money so that they can continue to be there. And it's not right to, take away from the businesses that are supporting your community.
Yeah. So, did your mom have a business?
My mom did not have a business at the time, but she did work 3 jobs.
Okay. She just respected other people, which we all should do, right? So, okay, tell me about like life at that time. You said you didn't feel that money was something you always had to have. So, um, was money tight in your household? Were you an only child? Was it just you and your mom, or was it and all of your other siblings and family members kind of trying to split what you had?
So during that time frame, my mom had me and my two other siblings, but also she was dating another guy who had two other kids. And so, with that being said, we had about 7 miles to feed at one time. So, with my mom working 3 jobs and the guy she was dating at the time had at least 2 jobs. And so money was actually pretty tight, but it wasn't really talked about too often. It's more so of like, hey, we need this to put food on the table. And if they don't have it, then lights were constantly being off. I remember we just going to the grocery store just for AC. Sometimes we'll go to the mall if it's super hot outside. Like that's where we kind of roamed and played and did things like that. But most of the time we were outside until the lights came on and we're back in the house.
Yeah, you grew up in the DC PG area?
It
No,
was actually in
Baltimore.
Baltimore. Yes, I grew up.
Yeah. That's so interesting because yes, there's AC outside of your because I grew up in the heat too for many, many years, but we were just in the house, just sit still, watch some TV or something, drink some water. But but yeah, okay. So how was school life for you growing up? Did that affect any of your education or any of your relationships with your friends?
When it comes to school life, growing up, when it comes to money, you can tell the people who were kids that were doing, I cannot recall what it is, but it's like where they get subsidized lunches. So they free and reduced lunch. And so if the kids that were a part of the free and reduced lunch, it's practically everybody was having that program. But there were some people who did not fill out that form. So we had like lunch tickets. They would usually come in blue or orange or something like that, depending on what quarter it was for the school season. And some of the kids that just didn't have it, you can tell because it was a black and brown community. So most of the kids that were ashy, then you notice that either A, they didn't have lotion at home, and they usually were constantly picked on, or their clothes were dirty and so forth. But my mom made sure that our image wasn't perceived that way. So she made sure we had clean clothes, made sure we had clean cuts, clean shoes, and so forth. So we weren't picked on in school. And so my mom grew up also in the city. So she understood what it meant to be bullied just on the way you look. Even though it's we all wear the uniforms. I think at the time it was like gold and blue uniforms. And make sure the belt looks nice. And sometimes I ain't had my belt or forgot the belt or the belt got all twisted. Like to this day, I'm horrible with belts. So I just make sure I get my pants that fit properly. So in case I don't have a belt on that day, they don't fall off.
I've never had heard of anyone having a problem with the belt. The,
It's a thing. Well, as a guy, you notice those things because other guys would kind of point it out, but or other girls at the time would actually kind of look at it and be like, "Yeah, you're not together."
yeah,
So
yeah. I know what you mean. Like the belt is kind of turned, but like, okay, it's a girl thing, I guess. I'm gonna make sure my belt is fine before I walk out the house. That is so funny. Okay, so I love that for you. Like your mom was very conscious about your image, and even though things were a different way personally or at home, you didn't reflect that. So, but did that what were you thinking about that at the time? Like, did it feel like, oh, I was hiding? Did you feel like you were hiding something? Did you feel like an imposter? Or yeah, what were your thoughts or feelings growing up?
well, my thoughts and feeling growing up is that I felt as though it wasn't so much an imposter. I just didn't know what my parents were actually going through because my dad didn't live with us, but he was actually with some other lady during that time frame. So it was just like a split every other weekend. I'll see my dad and I'll just see my mom. And it's just kind of like one of those things where we have what we have. And I didn't look for anything more. And besides their attention and their company. So growing up, not seeing them until like the lights are off, until the um actually it was at the end of the day. So like eating dinner was comfortable for me around 6, 7 o'clock at night, even as a kid. So now that an adult, I still have that same mentality. Like, you know, I feel like I'm still up even at like 7 or 8 o'clock. So I'll get something to eat versus now, even though I know that you should stop eating around like 5 or 6, but it's like I grew up this way. I'm comfortable with this, and I'm still here. I'm healthy. So, oh, but honestly, no, I don't feel like that actually hindered or changed the way that I view them. Because as a child, I just wanted my currency as a child was my parents' time.
Okay. So it wasn't like you were trying to be one of the cool kids with all the latest and greatest everything.
When it comes to being part of the cool kids, my mom actually wanted us to be part of the cool kids and be in the in crowd and make sure we had like name brand stuff and everything like that. But me personally, I didn't care for those. I didn't even know the brand names were until I went to a because we moved out to the county and then we moved back to the city. It wasn't until we moved back into the city I noticed that they were talking about like Timberlands were a big deal, and then cross colors and Fat Farm and stuff like that. So when I finally got into like I would say like high school, that's when I kind of started looking into brands. But I was a big Fat Farm kind of guy, like wearing the 2 to 3X shirts with the Fat Farm logo on the front. Had a Fat Farm like raincoat. People made fun of me, but that joint was so bright. They call me Big Bird.
It was yellow.
It was a bright yellow. It was like neon yellow. So not even a regular like you know Morton, the Morton Salt Girl yellow. It was like the highlighter yellow.
Hey, you were safe if you were walking outside at night with that on. Okay. So what was your first job?
My first job as paying on the table, because I got a lot of jobs paying under the table. But the first job paying on the table was being a waiter at a nursery home. And the cool thing about working there is that the first thing they actually tell everybody that is employed there was to not get attached to the people. Main reason because they might not be there tomorrow. And I didn't even think about that until I say like maybe 2 months in. The person I used to serve all the time was always there, nice and happy go getter, uh, had passed away. And I was like, man, this really sucks. So everybody just kind of biding their time, just kind of hanging out until they tip over. And that was a hard look at life early on. And I was still in high school, so that was kind of my first job there.
That is really sad. I remember growing up, we used to go to like the nursing homes to like keep them company. Like me and my cousins, we would play our instruments, and other church kids would go, and it'd be a thing. But yeah, I never really even thought about it like that. What were some things that you bought with your money? So you said in high school you started getting into fashion, well, name brand. I don't know how fashionable you were, but with your yellow highlighter yellow Fat Farm. But yeah, what kind of things did you buy with your money?
Well, the kind of things that I bought with my money were shoes, um, just like toys. I would say like remote control cars. What was I purchased? My first vehicle, and yeah, that was about mostly it. Clothes, and that was it. Yeah.
Did you feel like making your own money made a difference in your life at all? Or did you support your family with any of your earnings, or what? How did
Um,
that feel? Because I know when I started making my own money, like how that changed me. So that's why I asked.
so making my own money didn't really change me in a sense. It was just more so I can amplify the things that I really wanted to do. So when it came to like understanding like what my first job was, then I graduated to my second job. What I did was it was mostly paying for school, paying for like books and hanging out at parties, drinking alcohol, and driving up and down 295. If you guys know what Baltimore is, you know that it's like literally maybe an hour away from DC. So we used to ride up and down 295 or even 95 just to get to the clubs in DC. And that's where I spent most of my money. It really wasn't like, hey, you should put it in savings and all this fun stuff. Nobody talked to me about it, and I had no clue about it until I would say maybe like my last year in my undergrad.
Oh, okay. So several years of making your own money before you figured it out or started learning. It's were you one of those in the club with the blazers? I saw some posts online recently about how our generation were in the club with our work outfits on pretty much.
Yeah, so when I was in the clubs, yeah, I was in my work uniform because I think I got my third job at that time frame and I was working at the Geek Squad. So the Geek Squad uniform was, for those of you who don't know, is a white button down shirt, or it really is a button up, short sleeve shirt with black slacks, black tie. And obviously, the only thing that really made a difference was that we had a Geek Squad pendant, and I had the Geek Squad black shoes, and my socks were black as well. Sometimes I go white to be nerdy. And then we had a pocket. So in the pocket, I'll put pins there or whatever. So, and it got to a point where I used to go to the club so often, it was like, oh, hey, here comes Agent Weaver. And that's what I used to introduce myself as was Agent Weaver. And it stuck to the point where like most of the photos that I look at in the past, I was always in my Geek Squad uniform because I was always working while going to
That
school.
okay, okay. So you had multiple jobs while going to school.
Yes.
And
Um,
this is
yeah, while going to school, I did have about 3 jobs, no, 4 jobs at one point. So I was working in the movie theater. I was working at Geek Squad. I was working as back of the line cook for Fridays. It's a restaurant chain, and I was also selling kitchen cutlery, which is Cutco. So I was doing all 4 of those at the same time.
oh, okay. And I didn't work much in college. I worked like my junior and senior year. But were you paying for your education with these jobs with money that you were earning, or was this money that you were just keeping for yourself?
With the money I was getting from all these jobs, I did not pay for school. I was actually just using it so I can spend for my lifetime, like just out there, just having a great time. Even though I didn't start looking into start paying for college until like my last, like everything just clicked like my last year of undergrad. So I didn't even think about that. That's when I started applying for my first grants. That's when I started applying for book money and things like that for my education because I decided to take it seriously. In my undergrad, I was also modeling, so I was in the modeling club, also a computer science club, and I was in the math club. So because I was a pure math major, I once used to be a computer science major. Then I switched over to elementary education. So it was just I didn't know what I was doing, honestly, and I was just trying to figure things out during that time frame.
Yeah. So you mentioned you learned about finance senior year. What was that like in a class at the bursar's office?
Yeah, during my senior year when I learned about money, it was actually from one of the professors. They sat me aside and they were talking about the circles that they were in outside of school. And they were talking to him about how the black and brown community utilize credit cards. And he was saying is that most of the time, most of the people will tell you that credit cards, they're bad to have. You should only have one and so forth. But he was like, if they're going to give you the credit, then keep it. You don't have to use it. But he was saying that most of them were having their money as much as they make annually in credit cards. And I never thought about it that way because he was like, in case you're ever down and out and you really need the money, you can actually leverage the the credit cards to actually hold you over until you can actually do everything that you need to do. And but also during that conversation, he talked about seed money and investing. And so and this is all during his office hours. It wasn't like we were just in the classroom, but this was during his office hours. We would just have a chat about it. And he talked about his seed money. And so what he did was put up an Excel spreadsheet. And, this was way before everything was cool and fancy as they are now with all these fancy tools, and just went straight to the basics. So he started off and just kind of put a table. So across the top, he'll put like day week one, week four, then, after, 12 months, then he'll do 5 years and 10 years. And then down the left side, during to do the different rows, you'll start off with $1, $5, $10, $25. And that's where he kind of kept it at because I'm young, I was still in school. So he was saying, it's like, well, what does $1 a week look like? Then what does $1 the 12 weeks look like? And then 12 months, and then 5 years, and so more, so on and so forth. And having that grid printed out, he put that together with me explaining how he came to those numbers. He went on and printed it out. And when he printed it out, he gave me a copy of it. And I actually put that on the wall next to my bed. So I was actually tracking how much money am I putting from each paycheck to make sure that I could hit my goal of $10 a day, $2 a day, or whatever it was. And I'll go back to him as my accountability partner. I didn't know that term at the time, but he was my accountability partner, and letting him know that I was actually able to reach, $10 a day. And I was super excited about it. So to the point now, it's like if I ever have to go back to that mindset again, at least I can always pick up where I can start off my seed money.
Okay, so you learned about saving for, or just saving in general, but like, was it for saving with a goal in
Yes.
mind? I love that. What were you gonna say?
No, no.
Okay. So with your newfound knowledge, like where did you take it from there?
With this newfound knowledge, I went on and started looking into investing. So I opened up my first investment account, like outside of my employer, to then start looking into what are the companies that I'm currently using. So at the time, I was using Sprint, and that came from like Singular. Then yeah, I was switching from AT&T. Then Singular took over. Then AT&T bought them back, and then I switched over to Sprint. And then so I was like, let me invest in Sprint. And my first credit card, I think I had like a Capital One card, and I was like, let me go down and invest in Capital One as well. And so I just kind of saw what it did, and that's what I used the seed money for.
Oh, okay. So you use your seed money to make more money through investing. Okay. You said you didn't really know what to do, what to major in college. You eventually went into,
In college, I eventually went into elementary education.
so is that what you did after college?
Oh, after college, I was actually trying to find another job because I was also interning at NASA doing the Hubble Space Program. And this was during the time frame when the James Webb Telescope program was just in the talks because the Hubble program was already in the process of ramping up. And they just launched new, the last set of astronauts to the Hubble telescope so they can work on it. And that was like with John Grunsfeld. His last mission, and that's where he got the famous breaking off the handle. Even The Simpsons actually made an episode about it. But one of the things that I was trying to get into was more inside the tech realm, and in order for me to do that, I had to have a tech degree. So that's when I went on and decided to go ahead on and get my master's degree in information technology.
Okay. So what was your first job?
Say that
What
again.
was What was your first job out of college?
My first job outside of college was actually working for the Hubble telescope because changed me from an intern to full time.
Okay.
Um, but then they saw that I graduated with elementary educating, and they was like, "Well, we need more black teachers out there." And I was like, "I don't have to be the token black teacher," but they was like, "Nah, you got to do it." So they let me go for that time frame, and then so I just started working at a help desk position.
For NASA? NASA.
Oh, no, it was for, like, another company, working at a help desk for it was, like, 5 different jobs. So it was like a call center, really. So what happened is that somebody would call in, but because I only had, like, 2 monitors at the time back then, it was, like, really cool that you actually got 2 monitors. I really needed, like, 4. But one of the things was that I would take phone calls from 2 different companies. So it'll be like, a 2 law firms. It was a department store, a health clinic, and it was another big health clinic. So I had to deal with 5 different customers at one time. So the phone was set up so that no matter who calls in, it would display on my screen on which company that was calling in. And I had to actually learn all of their tools, all their SOPs for all 5 of these companies. And so and I did that at night. And so during that nighttime, that was when I was still finishing out my degree in information technology for my master's program.
Okay. So were you able to eventually get your degree and get a tech job like you wanted?
Yeah, I was able to get the degree. And then for some reason, I was at another help desk because I switched jobs by the time I finished. And they did not give me a promotion or anything. They just kind of like, well, that's nice that you had it. Um, so then I talked to another job and they was like, well, I see that you have the degree, but you don't have any certs. And I was like, come on. So I had to go get a cert. So I got the Security Plus. Most people know that the Security Plus is kind of the staple for the tech realm. And so I got that cert, and then I finally got a new job making about 17,000 more than what I was currently making. So I was like, all right, I'm here. And that felt good. So
Yeah. That that life like after college and navigating a career or just putting together your career is just very for me it was it was a lot of ups and downs, but I was still in the finance space, but just like you need a mentor is what I'm saying. You need a mentor. You need some type of guidance because I don't take anything back. I needed all of the experience that I've been through, but I just felt like, what am I doing? Like, but it all came together. So you get your new job, you're doing tech, and you have a little more money to invest. Like, what are the ways that you're like managing your money?
yeah. By this time frame, the different ways I was actually managing my money was still the same mentality that I had in the later end of college. So managing it in the sense of like I was just pretty much staying afloat. I was just paying bills. I was couponing, and what else I was doing? Yeah, just kind of maintaining, like keeping my vehicle alive. It was just trying to get out of healthy student loans, and that was the main thing. But also dealing with in a relationship that was also in a whole nother that's a whole nother lane. But during that time frame, it just kind of takes up a lot of finances to deal with that as well.
Relationships?
Yes, relationships, yeah, they take a lot.
No, no, no. I agree. I agree. I agree. I think it's so funny. Again, I need to get off social media, but it's just like, what are y'all even talking about? You clearly have no idea about money and how, like, as a woman, yes, I want to be treated nice and taken to the best places. But as a financial professional, I'm like, come on, they're not taking, guys are not. taking every single date to a fancy restaurant, dropping $200 to $400 every time, especially if like you're dating and searching and have some type of roster and all that. So I'm just the perspectives that I am in, like have like just anyway. But yes, dating can be very expensive.
Yeah.
You should not date unless you have some money for sure. There's a lot of things you can't do without money. Like I think a lot of people, um, well, I know a lot of people just like doing things that they can't afford. Even we talked earlier, the club. I wasn't in the club. One, I don't like that environment, and two, just like how Fergie in her one song, "If you ain't got no money, stay your home." That was me. And I lived by that. I don't have to be out spending money I don't have. So, okay, so you pretty much are a person who you don't do too much in terms of like spending or overexerting yourself financially, or maybe you did
Um,
with that relationship.
I am a person that will stretch the budget as much as possible, because when it comes to maintaining things, it's one of those things like it's a lot of nice to haves, but also there got to be a balance. And for me, it just seems like the opportunities that I really want to take advantage of, I try to take advantage of those as well without just thinking like, hey, I always have a safety net. I know how to make some money and I know that I can bounce back. So like perfect example, when I left my prior relationship, I actually went to Alaska and Trinidad and Tobago. Like it was just back to back. I was like, you know what? I'm just wasting it all. I just need to get a new mindset, get out of the headspace, just change everything so I can, you know, build my self confidence up again. Even though I was broke, but I was like, my whole sense of life has changed to the aspect of, it's a lot more out here than dealing with the finances, and your happiness is internal. No matter how many things that you can go out there and do, but if you don't feel happy, you're never going to be satisfied with whatever you do in life. And so that's one of the things that kind of helped me stay humble, into not really humble, but to stay comfortable in every action that I do. So that means that, you know, even if the money wasn't there, I'll still be happy. Even if I had a lot of money, I'll still be happy, but I'll actually try to make more people happy. But again, it's like not really make them happy. I can say, I'm crossing myself. You can scratch all that out. So, but ultimately, what I'm getting at is when it comes to finding happiness in yourself, is that you have to. Well, this is one of the things I did. I'm gonna just pause there. Let me think about that a little bit. Um, okay. So when it comes to being happy and understanding myself, coming out of a relationship that I was feeling as though I was worthless, and I was told I was worthless, and I was told that I would never really amount to anything. That I had to find myself again, and so it wasn't the amount of money to me. Then I realized, like, what is it that I really want in life, and what really brings me joy? And to me is finding my love language, which is experiences. And so I like to learn about people. I like to meet new people. I like to have a good time. And like seeing other people, having a good time as well. So that to the point where it's like I'm not running away from feeling sad. It's just that that's one emotion I think I'm okay not having in my life. Like I enjoy the aspects of, just being happy.
Yeah. Um, and to me, it's a little different. Like when I'm broke, I'm not happy. So I'm not able to pull from anywhere, any depths to be like, oh, I'm happy, even though, like, I don't know what that is. It's and I always have this question, like, what comes first, like financial health and stability or happiness? Because it's like the two are kind of intertwined in my eyes. Like when you're financially stressed and it affects your mentality and your mental health versus like okay, do you need to get the money up first, your money together and your financial health together first, or do you need to cultivate happiness first without all that? I personally, I need some money to feel okay.
When it comes to dealing with happiness first versus having financial stability, one of the ways that I look at it is that my mom, growing up, I remember having nothing in the refrigerator. Remember having just condiments, and we might have some stale bread. And I remember having just syrup sandwiches, ketchup sandwiches, or I used to call them wish sandwiches. Like we wish she had some meat inside, or wish she had some cheese or something. So and back then I was like, you know what? Regardless of what we had, we were just happy to be alive and happy to, that your loved ones are there. And that's one of the things that I kind of look forward to. The money will come and go. And that's one of the things that I as goes back to even my first job, just seeing the people tip over. Uh I know it's wrong to say just tip over, but they were once there. And one of the things that they always used to say, like, they'd be so excited that their children or grandchildren would come by. And most of the time, their children or grandchildren don't show up. And so those were the grumpy ones. And it's like, no amount of money that they had, because these places were expensive, where they were staying at. I was think back then, I think they were paying about 3,000 a month. That includes everything. And back then, I mean, and like this was early 2000s. So, I can only imagine what the price is now, maybe upwards of like 8,000 just to kind of stay in that same place. But having that understanding that, you know, being happy and your sense of mindset really sets the tone on how you want your finances to be, how you want your life to be. Because if you can't find happiness while you're broke, you're not going to find happiness when you have money.
I do agree with you. I do agree because when you're in the mental state of like stress and woe is me, like you really can't think your way out of that. Like that clouds your mind so much that you're stuck. You're stuck there. So I agree with that, but still, I'm not gonna
But
be out acting like everything's hunky dory. Like I'm not gonna like I tell my friends all the time, if I'm not talking, if I have disappeared, it's because I'm going through something and I need to work myself out of it. But yeah, so I find it very interesting the people who party every weekend or just like are able to fake it. I just cannot fake it, I guess is what I'm saying. So I know you purchased a rental property recently, and your intention was to rent it out, be a landlord, and use it as an investment. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience doing that?
yeah, so my experience with purchasing my first property ever, actually.
Wait, start by why you did it and your experience.
Why did I purchase my first property? The main reason why I purchased my first property is because I was listening to a lot of people that I've interviewed for my podcast, the About That Wallet podcast, um, which is that they were talking about how to get into it, what their mindset was about it, what are their intentions to deal with this property. And I was thinking to myself, it's like I've been listening to and interviewing people for over 2 years, and I haven't done anything yet in this space. So let me go ahead on and give it a shot. And I was actually planning on doing it more so of an owner occupied option, which means that I will live in one of the units and rent out the other one, which is some people use the term house hacking. And because of that, I think it would have helped out with the mortgage, made things a little easier on the mortgage and so forth. So those were my main intentions for that property.
Okay. And it was a turnkey property, a fixer-upper.
Okay. So this property was actually a fixer upper. And in a sense, to me, it was something that I wouldn't like rent myself because looking at the conditions that it was in, and I was like, there needs to be some modifications, like new flooring or just some fresh up paint, some new fixtures for the switches. The bath, like some of the bathroom fixtures need to be done, getting the brand new kitchen and everything like that on the other unit. So just seeing it, I was like, okay, I see the potential of what it could do. And that's one of the reasons why I went on and decided to get this property.
Okay. And so you've been renovating a little bit or
Yeah, so with this property, I've been doing a little bit of renovations. So it's like new windows, new flooring, brand new kitchen cabinets, kitchen sinks, and flooring for both units. Put in, different light fixtures, getting the backyard done. It's just kind of like the light stuff on some areas. So it wasn't like a heavy fixer upper where I had to put in like a brand new like actual floors or anything like that. It's more like LVP floors, make it look a little easy and you know picturesque. Because I had to get rid of that raggedy carpet that was in there. It's really nasty.
okay, so yeah, tell us a little bit about like the finances involved in purchasing something like this. What is the process like? And you said you put money into it, so like what is all of that like?
Okay, so the process was going back to actually just looking for the property. So before I even started looking for the property, I had to talk with my realtor, and then my realtor linked me up with the broker. And the broker is the person that has all the money. The realtor is just kind of like really cool guys, and with the broker, and then they just kind of chat back and forth, even offline, meaning with me not in the room. And they would come up with different deals for different properties, and I was actually looking for multi-unit properties that will allow me to live in one and rent out the other. So I was mostly looking for duplexes or quadplexes, or even triplexes, depending on the price. And one of the things that came up was that they can do more so because it's my first property. I can do FHA, which is the First Homeowners Association program, where it only allows me to pay 3.5% down for a particular property. And so my original budget was about 400,000. And with that, I was like, okay, cool. So I only had to put down like maybe $12,000, and that was it, just to kind of get a $400,000 property. And I was like, wow, this is actually something that is doable. So then wound up finding a place that was actually 600,000. So I had to put down 18,000. And all I had to show was that I had like 30,000 in the bank. I didn't even have to put all of it into the trust and everything like that. The trust meaning the title company. The title company will actually transfer everything to some type of trust money fund that they had. And it was a lot of back and forth paperwork from there. And then once I signed the dotted lines, they gave me the keys, and I was in there. And so I have to say, like at 3.5% for a $600,000 property, I have to say it's like anybody can do this. If I figure out a way to do this, anybody can do it, because I was so afraid of doing it. And so just having that understanding that your realtor is really there to help you, and you need to find a realtor that will break things down to elementary understanding. Because even though I listen to these people on my show, it's just that it's a different thing when you got when your name is actually on those dotted lines and you're responsible financially to perform at a certain level to make sure that you can pay the mortgage. And so that was one of the big takeaways, at least buying the first property.
Yeah, and just listening to your story, you've been someone who's hasn't shied away from investing. So from the time your professor talked to you about that, you said you started getting into it or you started saving your way to begin investing. So that is who Anthony is, about that wallet, making that money. Good luck with that property. I do hope you make a lot of money with it. Any advice? I know just gave a little bit of advice, and you did earlier with when you shared about the mentality and being happy. But any advice you would give anyone on their own financial journeys right now?
The advice that I would give somebody that's on their financial journey right now is to first build a habit of not giving up on yourself. And what I mean by that is showing up consistently, being there for yourself, listening to your body, listening to your wallet, actually. If your wallet says, "Hey, we not clubbing today. We gonna be sitting here having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, watching Netflix kind of day," then that's what we're gonna have to do. So please make sure that, and build the habit of learning about yourself. Learning how to learn is the most important thing that I can leave with you today. And for those of you who are on your journey, because everybody learns a little differently. And I want to make sure that you know what clicks for you. You know what triggers that you have. You know your routines and you know your rewards. And then ultimately, you know what feelings that you get after all of that. So I leave that with you today to continue on. Don't give up. You got this.
I love that, and I agree. When you know yourself and you operate from your purest intentions for yourself, and you're not trying to look like everyone else or do what everyone else is doing, it gives you a real good sense of confidence and stability. So, how can people keep up with you and reach out to you?
People can keep up with me at about that wallet on all the social platforms. I'm usually on Instagram, but more than likely you might see me on X or formerly known as Twitter as well. But also ultimately just listen to the podcast at about that wallet. You can find me on Instagram, not Instagram. You can find me on Apple, Spotify, Google, Haiti, even Amazon.com. So I'm practically everywhere.
Okay, anywhere podcasts are broadcasted from, I guess. All right. Thank you so much, Anthony, about that wallet for sitting with me today. And I hope everyone who listens gets something out of your conversation. You shared a lot of great nuggets. So thank you once again.
Oh, thank you for having me.